Hotshots Part 3. It's a book written by an insane feminist for an insane feminist audience who doesn't actually buy comics. It's a business model I'm unfamiliar with. I can sum it up. A bunch of scowling people scowl at each other for 20 pages. There's never any serious tension because you know that the ladies will never fail. They can't fail in Gail's universe. Female characters can't have depth. They have to be fabulous 24/7. But to tell a story, you have to have multifaceted characters. Character arcs and redemption stories are important. Gail's characters are Mary Sue's. You won't see them grow and develop because you can't ever portray them as less than perfect. Look at that face. That is... Oh, notice the facial expressions and the portrayal of the bodies as we go through this. If Gail shows... Oh, good God. That shouldn't be in any comic book. Notice these facial expressions never seem to change. It's just like soylent grin for the soylent mouth open for the guys, and these just bizarre facial expressions for the female characters. It's like he's allowed to draw. Oh, and the silly Billy kitten. He's allowed to draw one facial expression, and that's it. If Gail shows a female character is less than perfect, the NPCs will see it as an attack on all women. Because she isn't writing comics, she's not concerned with sales, she's writing propaganda. Hotshots is a fantasy world she has created for herself and her NPC allies, but it's a Mary Sue fantasy. She sees herself in the characters, slim 20s, perfect in every way. Compare her characters to Peter Parker or Tony Stark, two characters who had nothing but problems. If you were a fan of Ironman and Spiderman, you probably felt they had too many problems. But the old characters felt real. We could identify with them. Parker always had to disappoint people because he was juggling his secret identity, and at times he could be cranky, petty, and a bit of a jerk. SJW characters are jerks, but only inadvertently. They are projections of the far-left writers, who are usually mentally ill, authoritarian socialists. If you don't believe me, read their Twitter. The story tries to create tension, but it doesn't work because, one, I don't care about the characters, and two, the characters aren't believable in their roles. There's a scene where the protagonist is attacking a 50-foot robot with a 9mm. It's pretty ridiculous. Even a rifle would be ridiculous. Maybe if she had some sort of RPG or light anti-tank weapon, maybe she could get its attention. But it's not even going to feel a tiny little bullet. It lacks the appearance of truth. The scale is all wrong. And it kind of reminds me of when, as a kid, I wondered why military leaders never carried more than sidearms. The reason is, a captain is supposed to plan and give orders to his men who do the fighting. Actually, the story would have been more believable if she accepted that her strengths were in leadership and command. She accepts her limitations and plays to her strengths. But instead, she charges into battle with a Beretta. Actually, it reminds me of those old Hulk comics, where you would see soldiers with rifles going against the Hulk. The Hulk doesn't even field artillery, so why bother with 5.56 or whatever the Army used in those days, I don't know, 30-06 or something. But at least the Hulk had good writing overall, and a real troubled character with depth. It's why people know who the Hulk, Spiderman, and Iron Man are. Who are the characters in Hotshots? I read all 3 issues. All I remember is Deadpool had a romance with one of them. That was actually kind of interesting. I'm a big believer in including romance and flirting in a story. After reading this issue a few times, I have to admit I'm getting sucked into the story a bit. If Gail dropped the girl power nonsense and just focused on telling the best story she could, you would have a successful selling book. The goal should be to write the best story you can, an action-adventure with some romance. Writers like Gail have a giant chip on their shoulders. Their first goal is to write a feminist story with elements of action and romance. This is otherwise known as propaganda. Only masterclass storytellers can pull it off, and she isn't that good. But she can be funny. If she stopped grinding her axe, she would start selling books. But they don't care about selling books. They know the books will be canceled after a dozen issues, and a month later they'll launch a new series. Anyway, if you bought this book, you wasted $4.